Kovacs here with LitLife, and we are talking to school leaders all around the country around how remote learning is going, what it's going to take to keep this going, and hopefully get a lot of great advice and learn from the expertise that we have around the country around the world. So with that, I'd love to introduce Victoria Nahera from New York City. So, hey, welcome.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So, if you want to just say a little bit about yourself, where you work now, and your current role.
Um, my name is Victoria Nahera. I'm a first year principal in the Bronx. I started over the summer of 2019. And so I've been in my current position for about 7 to 8 months. So it's been a new learning experience. I work for the New York City DOE. I was an assistant principal before and in the same district, District 8. So I'm now at a different school, PS 333, but in the same district.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And we're so glad to have you here. And actually, Victoria and I worked together at PS 107. It was when I was first starting consulting and you were in AP. So looking.
Yes, my first years of AP of administration, yes.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Exciting
Both our
times, yes.
years. Yeah.
Both first, yes.
Nice, nice. Good. So yeah, glad to have you with us today. So first of all, how are you? How are your teachers and how are your students in this transition to remote learning?
So it's been a very unique experience. I work in a community that, we knew that there were going to be some challenges when we heard the news. Many of the students in the building or in the community don't have devices at home. So when we did some surveying, we knew we had high numbers of students that didn't have a device, and we had to act quickly in terms of how did we deploy the devices we did have in the building. And we even had to borrow some devices like from other schools in order to help this process work. And now relying on the students that we could not provide a device with like internet because there was no internet in the home, working closely with the New York City DOE to get devices to those students so that they could have access to their online remote learning environments with their teachers. So it was a lot of like quick planning, quick turnaround, but I have a good team of people that are very caring, just like myself. They see my vision, so we acted on that very quickly, and they're like actively day by day we are always trying to figure out and make sure that every child has a device. Even until now, we're like on week 4.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big process and probably the most important thing we can.
Right. Yeah, we have about 600 students, so we knew that they were going to need to have devices in their hands in order
Mhm,
for this to be successful.
definitely. Great. Well, thank you for doing all of the. I know all the back end stuff that goes into just putting one
Yeah,
iPad in one child's hand. So
absolutely. Yes.
wonderful. So, with all of this, we're really trying to think about what are some things that have remained the same? Like, how is school still school? And what's been the same that you've seen for remote learning that your kids are still getting or that your teachers are still going through, regardless of whether classroom is happening online or in person?
So the one big thing is that, as a new leader, you set some new tones in the building. And one of my biggest one was for adults to be welcoming and present for our students. So the teachers have really worked and the staff has really worked to do that. From the phone calls to the parents, from trying to get in touch with students, trying to find ways to make this new normal comfortable for them. My teachers creating opportunities, with windows of time to do morning meeting with students in the younger grades like we used to have. Obviously, it looks a little bit different in remote learning, but still time to see our friends in the morning. And the upper grade teachers still having that personal connection with our older students and making sure that they know what they need help with or try to figure out how to troubleshoot things that they are unable to do. So that's also been something that stayed the same. So we're still very child-centered. in a new way, trying to navigate new territory on what does that look like. We also want to make children to enjoy the company of what our school environment was. So we've kept a lot of great school spirit. Through Twitter, through Instagram, we try to extend ourselves and find families, and make sure that they're also aware of everything that we're doing. This week, that would have been our spring break. We decided to do like a spring spirit week. So it's been like the colors of the rainbow, with every single day having a different meaning. Monday was love, so everybody was in red.
Oh,
Tuesday was orange, so everybody was in orange for strength. Today is our day of sunshine, so that's why I'm wearing yellow,
oh,
because yellow is for sunshine. And then Thursday will be a day of hope, so everyone's in green. And Monday, a day of creativity, so purple or blue. So many of the activities that we would have done in school just took a different meaning for us, in terms of trying to make sure that children are engaged and that they feel that they're being loved by their teachers and the
mm,
staff in the building. So someone is always calling someone's house just to check in and see how they're doing, not just academically, but do they have everything they need? Do they need services for food, and we can give them that information? How can we try to support them to get internet at home, or if they're in need of a device? So we've made a lot of strides with just trying to make sure that the parents and the students have the necessity they need to
mm.
be supported during this time.
That's great. And I know that that's something that is a big focus of yours anyway, but it sounds like school is still school. It's a place for community. It's a place for joy. It's a place for
Right.
kids to really, have that sense of a home base with caring adults, regardless of whether
Absolutely.
or not they're in the building.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's in a different space now, right? It's virtually, but we are still here.
that's great. Yeah, that's nice. I'm sure your families are really happy to have that.
Yeah,
Um, and so that's all still true, and that's what we're hearing a lot, is that school is still school, and the most important thing is that we know where our kids are, we know that they're safe, that they have enough food, that they have devices, that they have Wi-Fi, and then once that's settled, we can really begin the hard work of learning.
right.
And so with that, what are some of the changes that you've had to implement in terms of teacher training, or in terms of curriculum, or anything else? What have been some of the big changes with this
So
switch?
some of the things that we discussed, as a school community, was that obviously the amount of time that students used to be in school was divided not only for the academic time, but also time for them to socialize,
Mm,
time for them to make friends, and just implement some of the new learning that they had, in their own unique way. And because we don't have that meeting time the same way anymore, we had to slow down our curriculum
mm,
a little bit, in terms of just giving students more time to practice. So we had to look at what we had planned, and really ask ourselves, what are goals that are manageable for the students, in terms of alignment to being a successful third grader or being a successful kindergartner at the end of this journey in June, the school year 1920. And we had to really pull out the most important things that we wanted to make sure that we could help students engage in and master by the end of the year, and show us that mastery in unique ways, through projects,
mm.
through their own videos, because there isn't the opportunity to always submit work the same way as before.
Yeah.
So we had to take in new creative ways in which students can show us how they're implementing things. The same thing for teachers. Some teachers felt comfortable with going virtually online, and have taken on like a new learning curve in terms of really making this their own. And then there's teachers that still need a lot of support, that, being online, having a virtual classroom, having to assign things virtually, or where do you look for grades, where do you look for the assignments, how do you turn things in, are things that they need a lot of support with. So we've been working closely with LitLife,
Mm,
and just our district, and just people within our staff that are comfortable with technological ways that we can use these platforms of remote learning, and giving the teachers that support, and really knowing that we're here to support you. We're not asking you to teach the same way. You cannot roll out the curriculum and the work the same the same way it was before. We don't have them for long periods of time. We have them for bursts of time. So
Mhm.
how can we best engage them during those bursts of time and make it meaningful learning? And for those students that don't have technology, like what can we do in partnership with the parents that are still learning experiences at home that they can share with us, and then they would be able to still show that they're learning.
I love that idea of like what does submission, what does learning mastery look like right now, and thinking about
Right.
videos and other kind of key ways for kids to show what they know. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not in front of us anymore. They can't submit an essay the same way or
Yeah.
draw pictures the same way,
Mhm.
unless they really have the technology for it. And if they don't, what could they do? We've
Mhm.
had parents who like will take the video, will take pictures of the kids' drawings, and then submit those to teachers. So there's been various ways and creative ways in which the students are showing us that they're learning.
Mhm. Awesome. Nice. Yeah. So with that, what surprised you? Has anything, thought would go one way and has gone another? Any surprises in these last 4 weeks of remote learning?
I guess one of the biggest things is the rapidness in which the staff um, became part of the new normal.
Wow.
We were kind of told, one weekend we're going to be going on remote learning. We had a day off Monday, and then we came Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to set up Google Classrooms, to set up accounts for students, to reach parents and let them know, like, here we are going to be now virtually. How can we help you, join the class for each of the students? So many adults in my building really like stepped up to the plate and said, like, well, this is the new way, we're going to work on it. And they got students engaged. So from the moment that we knew that we would not have students back in our building, everyone took on multiple hats and roles to try to make sure that we created a form of transition and comfort for the families and the students, and that we would find a way to almost immediately be able to maintain contact with the majority of our students. I would say, like, we have contact with about 98% of our students almost on a daily basis,
Oh, great.
which all came from the first couple of days where the parents knew that we were there for them and
Mhm.
that they could contact us in an email and a text message, through a class dojo, through Google Classroom, that there were all these different ways and that they could contact us. So that was something that really surprised me, because we could have fallen apart. We only had 3 days,
Yeah,
but everybody kind of just said we have to band together and do this. So that was a great thing to see.
that's wonderful. Yeah, it is amazing what dedicated teachers and school staff will do for kids. It really,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes. They really
it.
stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, it's great. And so what advice would you give? Like we're working with some clients who are kind of just now starting with earnest, remote learning in earnest, and you guys are in week 4. And what advice would you give to some folks who are just starting out, or what learnings have you taken from this so far?
Uh, One of the biggest things has been to survey what your staff is comfortable with,
Mm,
and then find out what supports you can give them in the areas they're not comfortable, that are parts of the goals that you want. Um, Obviously, we learned early on that there were staff members that needed support with just setting up their Google Classroom, because that was the platform we were using. And then they weren't comfortable in, how do you assign things such as Google Docs or Google Slides to students. Um, Also knowing to what extent are students comfortable with technology, because we learned that as well, through just having that first week of interaction, that there were students that were having a hard time just logging in, having a hard time um, navigating the system, navigating Google Classroom. Just, and that came from the fact that we didn't use technology as much as we should in the classroom.
mm,
It's a goal of mine. It's a big goal of mine to make sure that students have tablets and/or Chromebooks, some kind of a form of technology, and that it's integrated. But because we weren't at that step yet, that was a hurdle that we had to adjust to. So we did have to step back and take a week where teachers became comfortable with the different platforms that they wanted to use in their classrooms. And then we provide support through workshops to better get a grasp of those platforms. And then now they're putting them in their classroom, but it's just like a week of learning for children in a non-threatening way where the kids will be able to navigate different platforms and games and online programs that we would be using, and giving them time to just log in. And do you have any questions? Where do you go to do things? Like, how do you set up a Google document? How do you submit your assignments? And navigating that with the parents as well, because they're now part of the teaching field with us in the class, and from classroom, virtual classroom, to being at home classroom. So we really had to take a step back on that when we looked at students. So I advise people who are just starting off, what can your staff do and what can the students do?
Mm.
Because we are going to rely a lot on students being able to do things independently, and then teachers being able to guide them to do those things.
Yeah, that's a big one because I think we always assume that kids, can just kind of take it and run with it, but really
Right.
that depends on accessibility and what they've seen before. And
And
so,
their experiences, right.
yeah, yeah, it's big. Thank you so much for this. So, I
Absolutely.
think this is really valuable advice for people who are kind of getting into this right now and thinking about leadership in general. I mean, I've heard you say gather feedback, get your whole team on board, ensure that everybody feels comfortable and taken care of first. Like, I think that's just good advice in general when leading
Right.
such a big charge like running a school. Um, and so we'll close out with my favorite question, which, I think the more people answering this, the better for all of us.
Right.
But if you were put in charge of all school children tomorrow, what are some things that you would start out with to make sure that everybody receives an excellent education?
I guess one big thing is to the surveying of what children need. Every community is unique, and then how do we connect to those communities in order to support children's learning. I know even amongst my district, where my school is located, is very unique compared to other schools.
Mhm.
So knowing that every school in every city, it's its own piece of the puzzle. They're not going to be the same as someone else. So what are those uniquenesses, and how can they support the leaders in the building and the teachers in the building, to make sure that they are aware of the needs of the children in the building and the community, because those are big parts of the learning process. Who are the children that are there? What
Right.
do they need? And who are the members of the community? And is the money that is filtered into schools used to support what the children really need? Uh, and definitely an eye opener for me in this part of the times is, how are we infusing technology to support children, in the 21st century? So if there's something that I would say is needed across the United States, is more technology, not used as a babysitter, not used as a program where the children just go in and are on a platform, but how do we actually use it to teach children to communicate, to express their learning in new and unique ways, so that it doesn't become a shocker, when we have to use it. I really think that, I had just started when I worked at 107 to wet my feet in terms of how did we use technology to get children to express themselves in their learning. But coming into my school at PS333, we didn't have the technology like we did at 107. So it was a shocker to see, like, oh wow, like I really need to invest in this to make sure that there's different ways that children are able to express their learning. And it can't always just be on paper pencil. So that opportunity of expressing our learning in different ways is definitely something that I think we need to bring back. And
Mhm.
I know sometimes it gets overpowered by curriculums, by standards, by exams, but that's what makes learning unique. We all learn and express our learning in different ways.
Mm. Oh, what a good point, especially about these 21st century skills that, either kids will get them or not, but maybe through
Right.
absorption right now, it just looks so different across the landscape. So
Absolutely. Yes.
wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and best of luck to everybody.
Thanks. Good seeing you as always.